Yeah, thanks, honey. Yeah, my name's Kelly, and I'm an addict. I've been doing a couple of shares throughout the whole day, but I thought I'd try and mix it up a little bit because some of you might have heard me quite a few times. But I've only got one story. But what I've reflected on, because on Saturday, this Saturday coming up, I celebrate my 9 years of continued, sobriety and clean, and it blows my mind when I think about this time 9 years ago, the state that I was in, the darkness that was before me. It was just horrendous, and and I never ever thought that coming into a room like this and listening to someone share and listening to people share back from the floor was ever going to make an impact on my life. I never believed it. I would sit at the back of the room. I understood what you were saying, I understood how you thought, I understood how you felt, but I couldn't fathom that looking at the steps. I read the steps about 45 million times before I even took them, because I just couldn't imagine how that was ever going to change my life and change the way that I felt. Because I know if you took drugs and alcohol away from me, I couldn't cope. I just couldn't cope. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had absolutely no idea. I spent most of my time being sent to treatment, going to CA meetings, because everybody else wanted me to sort my life out. But I was terrified at the thought of living without drugs and alcohol. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just didn't understand. When I first came into recovery and I first started to take the steps seriously, and I heard the words fear, anxiety, I never really heard those words before. I'd never really understood that had a low self-esteem and a massive ego, it was such a journey of discovery. And from the first moment I started to take the steps, what happened is I started to learn to understand myself, and that's what the journey has been. I've spent 9 years sieving through this mashed up head of mine, trying to figure out what it is that's wrong with me. And and you don't go through the 12 steps and everything's fixed. And I did that the first time round. I went through the 12 steps, had a spiritual awakening, felt a bit better, but I didn't change anything. I literally was still just as shady as when I first came in. But I thought if I didn't tell you I was being shady, then I wasn't really being shady. So nothing in my life had changed. And what I didn't understand was that this program is about change. It's about change of our thought patterns. And I was so mad and angry at the world. And before I arrived, so mad and angry at the world. Every little thing would just tip me over the edge. And the reality is I could not cope with those feelings. I couldn't cope with, I'll go back through sort of my childhood. My dad was an addict, alcoholic. I didn't really grow up with him in my life because it was quite chaotic, as you can imagine. We haven't come here because we've had a good life. And my mum was a miserable cow. We didn't grow up in a loving environment. So for me, I really thought that was why I was the way I was, because I'd had quite a traumatic childhood. But I actually believe I was born with this maladjustment to life. My mum said to me, "You was a miserable little shit," excuse me language, from the day that you were born. And I can actually say that throughout my whole childhood, something was not right. Everyone else just seemed to know what they were doing. Everyone else seemed confident. I didn't know that I was painfully aware of myself, but every little thing that happened around me, I analysed until the point of absolute despair. I was actually quite quiet as a kid. And then if anybody knows me now and thinks, you was quiet, I was quiet. Yeah, I was so painfully aware of myself. If I was in a group of people and somebody was laughing and joking, and I just couldn't get involved, because if I said something that didn't sound right and you all laughed at me, I'd be crippled, absolutely crippled. I'd have to go and find a new set of friends and hide for a while, because I just couldn't cope. And I didn't realise what my problem was. I was maladjusted to life because I'd never understood that. And this is what the steps and the journey has taught me, is what is wrong with me. And I actually feel truly blessed to be condemned with the disease of alcoholism and addiction, because when I look around society today, I see people that are maladjusted to life, that don't have a solution, because they haven't been forced to look at inwards and look at themselves and their behaviours. So I feel really blessed that actually, for the 90s, I had a fabulous time. It was fabulous. So, my journey into drug taking alcohol was really not really a big thing for me in the beginning. The only thing that alcohol ever did was make me more angry. And my first real addiction, I'd say, was fighting. I love to get into a scrap. You know, don't be fooled by the delicate wallflower you see before you. I'm a bit like my little dog Luna. I'm a bit scrappy. And you know, and I used to steal stuff from shops that was just irrelevant. I didn't need it, but I loved the buzz. And now I understand my behaviours growing up. I can understand why I was doing this stuff. And but the journey for me, the first time I ever took drugs is a friend of mine was going to a nightclub that was local to Bournemouth called The Manor. And she was going there for her birthday. And she said, "Do you want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to come." She said, "You do know they take drugs there, don't you?" And I'd heard about the fact that it was a bit of a drug den, but I hadn't really even thought about it. But she said, "Do you want any whiz?" And I just said yes. I just went, yeah, all right. Because I couldn't say no, because I didn't want to look stupid, so I just agreed. I turned up to this house with my best lycra catsuit on. Yeah, I had the ginormous platforms on, and I, face full of makeup, I was ready to go. And she handed me this pile of powder and went, "There, that's yours." I didn't know what I was doing with this stuff, and I just watched her dab her finger, put it in the pile and rub it on her gums, and I did exactly the same thing. Now, I actually thought I was going to drop down dead instantly, because I think this is around not long after the I think what Nancy Reagan had started a campaign, Just Say No, and I thought, it's not that easy, Nancy, do you know what I mean? I'm in a room, there's peer pressure, and I've got to take it. So we're on the way up to this nightclub, because back then you could take drugs and drive. They've put a stop to that since then. And so we're heading up to this nightclub, and I'm absolutely sweating in the back, thinking I'm just about to drop down dead at any good given minute. And I smoked about 20 B&H all the way up there. We got to the queue, and I can feel it right now when I tell you what happened. I scratched the top of my head, and this really strange sensation was on the top of my head. And I just went, and all of a sudden I went from 5'1" to 6'1" to 7'1". I just grew in size, and like my shoulders opened up and went back, my mouth opened. I couldn't stop fucking talking, excuse my language. I cut some serious shapes on that dance floor. I owned the nightclub. I was massaging strangers in the chill out room. I just thought, this is amazing, you know. It was like someone had taken a bottle of Coke for 20 years and had just shaken it with anxiety, stress, self-esteem issues, stress, anxiety, and it just took the lid off. And all of that pressure that I'd been holding all of my life just erupted out of me, and I just thought, this is it, I've arrived. And that was it. I was sold from that very first night. I became a regular at the Manor. On various nights, I was always up there, and very soon I kind of shifted my friendship group. You know, I just kind of went, yeah, you're boring now, and off you went. I went down to probably about a size 6 in about 3 weeks. I thought I looked fantastic, and it was just, you know, I really had arrived. And I remember being at a party once, going, they need to put this stuff in the water. It's amazing, like, and I was having a great time. You know, the 90s for me was electric. I just had such an amazing time. But what happened is my ability to live, because this was such an elated part of my life where I just felt free and fabulous and I was popular and everybody loved me, I felt so addicted to that this little life over here on the right hand side that was mundane and boring and I was painfully aware of myself became harder to live in. So I spent more time over here getting off my nut, feeling free, you know, having and this, my real life started to disintegrate quite quickly. And I mean, how I did this, I do not know. So I worked for Tony and Guy in the 90s. I mean, they were nuts over there anyway. I mean, everyone was putting speed in the tea. I mean, this is why you all had crazy haircuts in the 90s, yeah, because we were just off our nuts constantly. And so anyway, so I lost a job because apparently if you don't turn up, they're not too much into that. So then the geographical started, and I went from one Tony and Guy to the next. Every time it was getting a little bit on top, I would move around. And because I'm quite good at what I do, people would just brush off the fact that I wouldn't turn up. And then eventually I was in Marbella, and I worked in Marbella for a little while. That's not the place to go if you want to sort your life out, by the way. And when I came back from Marbella, and I arrived back into Bournemouth, and I'd been gone for about 8 years, and I came back exactly the same person. And everybody around me had started buying houses, settling down. They were still in the same jobs, you know, and it was like, and all of a sudden that trophy of I've been up for 3 days was diminishing, and my using started to go underground a little bit, you know, that I no longer had the badge of honour that I've been up for 2 days. It was like, what are you doing? So, you know, apart from Facebook throwing me under the bus a couple of times, I thought I was getting away with it. But anyway, so I thought, well, if I do what everyone else is doing, I'll settle down, I'll find some poor sod to marry me, we'll have a kid, and it'll all be happy days. And that just didn't happen. So I got married, and my husband would like to party, you know, we'd get a couple of bags of coke in and blah, blah, blah. And he'd do this strange thing, I'm going to bed. And I'd be like, what the hell? What? I'm just thinking about that's going to run out soon. I need to get some more. There's only like half a bottle of wine left. I'm in panic mode and he's going to bed. And it's just like, and that was the difference. I didn't realise that I suffered with an allergy, yeah, which means once I start, I am not going to stop until I'm at least arrested. I've literally got no way of getting any money, or I'm out cold, knocked out. And it was torture. Like, I would rather have none than one. Because once you start, that's it. I need more, I need more, I need more. And, you know, consequences. We had a child, consequences started to happen. Because when you're making a misery of your own life, people just go sort yourself out. But when you bring children into the equation, you've got to sort yourself out. I ended up in treatment a couple of times. Wasn't ready. You know, I got thrown out of one treatment centre, which was apparently where all the naughty kids go. So I'm not quite sure how that happened, but I got thrown out. And in the end, my mum died unexpectedly, which was a real shock to me. And being a single parent, my mum was a single parent. So when my mum died, it really tore my heart out. And I couldn't cope with the emotions. And what happened with that, as I hit well, if you felt like I felt, you do what I was doing as well. And I just went off full flight from reality. Had a new relationship with diazepam, pre-gabs, whatever I could get my hands on. This is a true story. So my husband and my son have left to go and live with his mother. And in my wisdom, I really thought they'd left me on my own so I could sort myself out. I thought, well, they must trust me because they've left me on my own. That was what I truly thought. And my husband was dropping off food parcels to me because by this time I was feral. And at one time he was handing over the shopping over the balcony, and I went, what, Pete, why are you being so different with me? Things have changed. He went, Kelly, I left you 6 months ago. And I hadn't a clue that we'd even broken up. I didn't realise that social services had taken my child away from me. I didn't realise that my son was forced to remove my son from my care. I was oblivious. I spent the last year of my using in blackout. I became best friends with two little hobos. One was called Jason, one was called Shane. For the life of me, I couldn't tell you which one was which. Yeah, we spent months in our kitchen, just around the little breakfast bar with a pile of crack at the end of the breakfast bar. No one would move. No one would go to the toilet. Everyone just stood there staring at the crack. I mean, it was just it's insane. I was put onto a DRR. I don't even know why I was on a DRR. Honestly, I can't tell you, not even to this day, got no idea why I was on a DRR, but I presume it's because I was being a pain in the ass. I got done for drug driving twice in 1 month. I'm up in front of the court and I just thought, oh my God, I was on probation. So I'd gone from owning my own business, having my husband and my son, having what looked like the 2.4 children, which looked like I had a wonderful life, but inside was in complete turmoil. And that suddenly crashed, and I was just left with my addiction. That was it. And I remember this is the moment. This is my God-given moment, okay? Because there was no way this came from me. I'd either woken up from blackout, or I'd woken up. I'm not sure where it was, but I just remember being in my lounge in my little flat on Southcote Road. And we all know Southcote Road. And I just sat there and looked at these two hobos. There was crack on the side, there was drink, and I just remember going, you need to get out. And they're like, what? I was like, you need to get out. And they're like, what do you mean, man? What do you mean? Like, they didn't have nowhere to go, and I was just like, get out! And because I'm a bit of a psycho, they got out. Like, they literally got out of my way. And and I sat there and cried like I've never cried before, like an absolute gut wrenching. Something inside me had broken that day, and I'll never forget it. I'd sat on the floor in absolute floods of tears. No, not one consequence had ever taken me to that. Not losing my son, my husband, anything, nothing had ever brought me to that gut wrenching cry. I was wailing. And on this little chest that I've got, there was a rolled up where to find. And I opened up this where to find, and it was a Wednesday. And I crawled to the meeting. I hadn't brushed my teeth for about, I don't even know how long, hadn't had a shower. And I'm not someone that goes out unless I look the part, but that was gone. I was feral. And I rocked up, sat at the back of the meeting, had no battery on my phone. I sat there pretending that I was really busy and important, texting everybody. And you know what? Luckily for me, women that would come before me, and men, knew exactly what was going on for me. They knew why I was sat at the back, and they knew why I was head down, not interested, didn't want to communicate. A couple of them took my number, and I just scurried out of there as quick as I could, because I didn't know I was full of fear, but I just couldn't even look anyone in the eye. I didn't want a conversation with anybody. I just wanted to go into that room and get well and come out of there and it all be fixed. And the women started phoning me. I wouldn't answer the phone because I was just full of fear. I didn't know that I was full of fear. This is what I've learned about myself since I've come in. And then one day I drank half a bottle of gin. This one woman that wouldn't leave me alone, she kept phoning me. And eventually, after half a bottle of gin, I answered the phone. And I don't know where the words came from, but I just went, "Can you sponsor me?" And she went, "It would be an honour." And that lady's here with us tonight, and she's become my best friend. And if it wasn't for that persistence of that woman, I probably wouldn't be here today, because she would not leave me. I thought she fancied me. I thought she wanted a bit. Don't blame her. She's only human. Anyway, so she rocked up and we started going through the steps. Now, I had no idea what this was going to be about. I didn't really understand what we were going to do. And we started talking about the book. So this was me going through the steps, apparently. I didn't realise that that's all it was. I didn't realise that that's all I had to do. And she identified with me and what parts of the book she's going, and I was going, "Oh God, yeah, I felt like that." And she would explain to me that that's what she's felt like and how this has happened for her. And it was just like, I believed this woman. I believed she had been where I'd been, because I'd never allowed any of you close enough to even believe any of your stories or even hear any of it. But this little woman was persistent. And anyway, so then we got to the step 4 and everyone's going, "Oh, step 4, you've got to tell your whole life story." I thought, listen, if you want to hear my life story, give me a line of coke and you can hear it twice within an hour. I'm not bothered about that. If this is going to save my life, then I will. So I shared my life story with this woman, and she told me about myself, which I wasn't shocked. I was a bit like, that's a bit rude. And actually I was just like, yeah, I am a victim. And do you know what I've come to realise? I'm the biggest hypocrite that there is. I'm even now I'm a big hypocrite. I'm a victim. I'm full of self-pity. All these shortcomings or defects of character, whatever you want to call them, I was all of them. And she was like, "Do you want to be that woman?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I don't want to be that woman." And she said, "But before I wrote my step 4, I was actually writing it, and this is the truth. So I was writing it, and I was in pain. I wasn't using. I wanted to use. I was writing my whole life story down, and I phoned her up. I actually texted her and went, "I can't phone anyone. I can't do this. I need to use. I'm absolutely in bits." And she said to me, "Listen, Kelly, I'm telling you now, if this did not get better, I wouldn't be here myself." She went, "If you just sit with this pain just that little bit longer, as soon as you finish that step 4, I'll be there." And she did. She came straight round. We went through it. Now, nothing changed for me in the first couple of days. I was glad to have that over and done with. But this is where I knew that recovery had taken a hold for me. I'd gotten off the train. Somebody had asked me if I had a lighter for a cigarette. And I just sort of took it out of my pocket and I looked at this woman and I just remember, this is how I felt. I just held gaze with this woman. And I've never been able to do that with anyone. She must have thought I fancied her, because I was just like... And I remember walking away from that train station, and do you know what it felt like? It felt like I'd had half a glass of wine. Like that weight that I've been carrying for all these years had just disappeared. And I phoned my sponsor and I went, "This is how I'm feeling. It feels weird." And she went, "Oh my God, this is amazing. This is what recovery is. This is what is taking a hold of you." And so far... for the whole 9 years that I've been going, I've had some tough times, and as we all do for our recovery, I've always felt like I've had half a glass of wine. You know, I've never wavered from doing what I was asked of me. I was told when I got involved, you know, you need to make effort for other people. You need to carry the message to other people, you know. And I'm really good at that. I love to get into the trenches and dig people off the floor. You know, I do a lot of service. I don't always know what I'm doing when I take a service commitment on, but I'll do it. And sometimes even when I finish it, I still don't know what it was all about, but I've done it. And I've got involved. You know, they said get involved, get into the middle, because when you're skirting around the outsides, people forget you've gone. You know, and I've stayed in the middle, and it's like, all I can say is someone's never done the steps, and they don't know what really it's all about. It's a journey of discovery that leaves you with the most amazing peace in your mind. I mean, I remember that someone said you'll have a life beyond your wildest dreams. What I've been left with is a mind beyond my wildest dreams. I was tortured. My brain tortured me for so many years, and it's like the freedom that I have is immense. I just can't. If I could just bottle it up and spray it all over you for a little bit, you know. But it is amazing. And I was talking to a sponsee the other day, and she said, "This feels weird. I just feel peaceful. I feel calm." And she said, "Well, I don't understand it." I went, "You don't have to understand it. You just have to feel it." And the one thing I've not really talked about this in my recovery, about the God thing, because the God word is in that book multiple times. I do not know what is saving me. I do not know what has given me a peaceful mind. All I know is I've done what I've been asked to do, and so far I'm still here, loving life. And I'll leave it there.